My parents let a stranger wear my twins' clothes, sleep in her bed and live her life. Then said it was what Bailey would have wanted, even though it felt like they were erasing her memory and replacing her with someone who could never truly be her. This is a story about how my family, shattered by grief, tried to replace my dead twin sister. And how, in doing so, they nearly erased me from existence. What they didn't realize was that their perfect replacement daughter was hiding a chilling secret, one that unraveled everything and left a trail of broken lives in its wake. My twin sister, Bailey, died in a horrific car accident on our 16th birthday. 2 weeks later, I was still sleeping in her oversized hoodie, the scent of her fading with every wash, when my parents sat me down. "We're adopting a girl from foster care," Mom said, her voice strained. "She needs a family." The moment Helen walked through our door, my blood ran cold. It was like seeing Bailey's ghost. The same honey blonde hair, the exact green eyes, even her height. Mom practically lunged, grabbing Helen's hands. "Welcome home, sweetheart. Bailey would have wanted this." That very day, they moved Helen into Bailey's room. I stood in the doorway, a phantom limb where my sister used to be, watching Helen unpack her single backpack. She ran her fingers over Bailey's cheerleading trophies, her Polaroids, her favorite stuffed elephant. "These are all yours now," Mom declared, flinging open Bailey's closet. Dad added, his voice unnervingly cheerful, "We're so glad to have our daughter. Not new daughter. Just daughter." As if Bailey had merely been away on a long vacation. Within days, Helen was wearing Bailey's clothes to school. Not borrowing, Mom actively encouraged it. "It keeps Bailey's memory alive," she chirped, spraying Helen with Bailey's signature vanilla perfume each morning. I'd come home to find them poring over our family albums, pointing and laughing. By the third week, something truly disturbing started happening. In our digital photo frames, Helen's face had replaced Bailey's in old pictures. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, beach trips. "Isn't technology amazing?" Dad said when he caught me staring, a fake smile plastered on his face. "Now all three of you can be together." But the nicknames were the worst. Bailey had been Sunshine since she was 3. Now I'd hear morning sunshine drift from the kitchen, but it was meant for Helen. They celebrated when Helen made the honor roll, beaming, just like Bailey. They even signed her up for Bailey's dance classes. One night I found Helen at Bailey's desk, diligently practicing Bailey's unique handwriting, copying from her old journals. When she saw me, she just smiled. "Your parents asked me to write thank you cards for the funeral flowers." My stomach dropped. Our 17th birthday approached. I tentatively suggested something small, maybe a visit to Bailey's grave. Mom shook her head. "You're too old for birthday parties, honey. Besides, Helen's never had a real birthday celebration." They threw Helen a huge party. Bailey's favorite cake. Bailey's favorite theme. They even sang happy birthday to Helen. I sat in my room, clutching a photo of Bailey I'd hidden under my bed, feeling utterly invisible. School planned a memorial service for Bailey. I'd spent weeks preparing a speech, pouring my heart into every word about my twin, my other half. When I told my parents, Mom's face lit up. "Oh, Helen should do that. She's much better with words than you." Dad nodded enthusiastically. It would mean so much to everyone to see Bailey's spirit living on. I couldn't breathe. Helen just sat there, already nodding, already accepting. That night, I went to add more photos to my secret Bailey box under my bed. It was gone. Without a word, I understood. My family wanted me to shut up. 3 months later, I found a thick envelope addressed to Bailey in the mail. A college acceptance letter. My hand shook as I saw the date. Applied 2 weeks ago. I confronted my parents. Helen sat between them on the couch, perfectly calm. "We knew," Mom said simply. "There's a full scholarship in Bailey's name at state. It would be such a waste." Dad added, "Helen needs a fresh start, a real identity." They even had Bailey's guidance counselor believing Helen just needed time off after trauma. I stared at them, horrified. "You're letting her steal Bailey's entire life." "It's what Bailey would have wanted," they chorused like a perfectly rehearsed line. Helen reached for my hand, her nails painted Bailey's favorite shade. "We're still sisters," she whispered. "Just like you and Bailey were." I looked at my parents, really looked at them. They weren't grieving anymore. They'd found their solution. A replacement daughter who didn't remind them of car accidents and funeral homes. One who could go to college, get married, have grandchildren, one who could live the life Bailey never would. I stood on shaking legs. I was alone now, the only one who remembered Bailey as she really was. The twin who survived but became invisible. The daughter who couldn't be replaced because she'd never truly been seen in the first place. They were still talking, but I'd stopped listening. I walked to my room and locked the door. I pulled out my phone and watched the last video Bailey ever sent me. Her laugh. Her real laugh. Not Helen's practiced imitation. 3 months and they'd erased her completely. Replaced her with a stranger who wore her face better than she ever did. And the worst part? They slept fine at night, convinced it's what Bailey would have wanted. The clock on my nightstand glowed 2:47 a.m. when I started packing. My hands moved quietly, methodically, stuffing clothes into my old camping backpack. Helen's breathing drifted through the thin wall between our rooms, steady, peaceful, coming from Bailey's bed. I grabbed my phone charger, then reached for the music box on my dresser, the one Bailey had given me for our 13th birthday. My finger slipped and it crashed to the floor. The tiny melody of "You Are My Sunshine" filled the sudden silence. I froze listening. Helen stirred in the next room, bed springs creaking. My heart hammered, but her breathing eventually steadied again. I shoved the broken music box into my bag and zipped it closed. The house felt different at night. Every floorboard seemed louder, every shadow deeper. I crept past Bailey's room, Helen's room now, and paused. Through the crack under the door, I could see the soft glow of Bailey's fairy lights. Helen had kept them on every night. I made it to the kitchen without waking anyone. My car keys waited on the hook by the door. The garage door opener would be too loud, so I'd have to push the car out to the street before starting it. I grabbed a water bottle from the fridge and noticed Mom's handwriting on the calendar. Helen's college orientation. 2 weeks. The 24-hour pharmacy on Maple Street was mostly empty at 3 a.m. I needed supplies, granola bars, toiletries, maybe some Band-Aids. The fluorescent lights made everything look harsh and unreal. I grabbed a basket and started down the first aisle. That's when I saw it. The community board near the entrance, covered in local announcements and lost pet flyers. But one poster made me stop cold. A missing person flyer. Helen's face stared back at me. Different name though. Catherine Chun, age 17, missing since 2021, 2 years ago. Same green eyes, same honey blonde hair, same tentative smile. My hand shook as I took a photo with my phone. The cashier at the front noticed me lingering. I hurried to grab supplies, my mind racing. Catherine Chun. Who was Helen, really? At the register, the cashier, a woman in her 30s, kept staring at me. I tried to act normal, placing items on the counter. Deodorant, trail mix, bottled water. She scanned them slowly, still watching. Rough night, she asked. I nodded, fumbling for my wallet. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. My sister, well, she's not really my sister. She just looks like my sister who died. And my parents are pretending she is my sister. And I found this flyer. The cashier's hand moved toward the emergency button under the counter. I recognized the gesture from working retail last summer. My rambling sounded insane, I knew that. But then she tilted her head, studying my face more carefully. Wait, are you the Morrison twins? I mean twin. Her voice softened. I'm Maria. I used to babysit you and Bailey when you were little. Like really little. You probably don't remember. Maria. The name sparked a faint memory. Someone who let us stay up past bedtime and made the best grilled cheese sandwiches. I nodded, not trusting my voice. She glanced around the empty store, then leaned closer. Listen, I need a huge favor. My daughter's sick and my babysitter just canceled. I've got another hour on my shift, and if I leave early again, I'm fired. Could you just sit with her for an hour? She's asleep in the break room. I stared at her. Every second I stayed increased the chance of my parents discovering I was gone. But Maria's eyes were desperate, and she pulled her hand away from the emergency button. I'll pay you, she added quickly. And I won't call anyone about whatever's going on with you. Through the window, I saw Helen's missing person flyer flutter in the wind. Catherine Chun. 2 years of being someone else. My phone buzzed. 3:27 a.m. If I helped Maria, I'd lose my head start. But if I ran now, she might call the police about the crazy teenager buying supplies at 3 a.m. Maria's daughter lay curled on the break room couch, a Hello Kitty blanket pulled up to her chin. She looked about 6 with dark hair and flushed cheeks. A thermometer and children's Tylenol sat on the coffee table. Her fever broke an hour ago, Maria whispered. She should sleep through. My shift ends at 4:30. She squeezed my shoulder. Thank you. Really? I sat in the uncomfortable plastic chair, watching the little girl breathe. My phone screen lit up with notifications. I was afraid to check. Instead, I opened Instagram and stared at my empty profile. One post. That's all I needed. Something cryptic enough that my parents couldn't use it against me, but clear enough that people might understand later. I typed and deleted a dozen versions before settling on. Sometimes the person you're trying to save is the one holding you underwater. Time to swim. I added a photo of the sunrise from last summer. Bailey and I had snuck out to watch it from the roof. You could see our shadows but not our faces. Posted. The little girl stirred, mumbling something about pancakes. I checked the time. 4:15 a.m. Almost done. My phone started buzzing nonstop. Mom calling. Dad calling. Then texts flooding in. Where are you? Your car is gone. Answer your phone now. We're calling the police if you don't respond. A new caller ID appeared. Aunt Sharon. Then Uncle Pete. Then numbers I didn't recognize. The family phone tree had activated. I turned my phone to silent and shoved it in my pocket. Maria burst through the door at 4:32 breathless. I'm so sorry I'm late. Register got stuck and... She stopped seeing my face. What happened? I stood up grabbing my backpack. I have to go. Your daughter's fine. Fever's still down. She asked for pancakes in her sleep. Wait. Maria dug through her purse and pressed $40 into my hand. Whatever's happening, be careful. And that flyer you were looking at? I've seen that girl around. Different hair color now, but same face. My heart stopped. Where? Your parents' house. I delivered groceries there last month. She answered the door. The parking lot felt enormous as I ran to my car. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky pale pink. I threw my backpack in the passenger seat and fumbled with my keys. That's when I noticed the security camera mounted above the pharmacy entrance. Its red light blinking steadily. My suspicious behavior at 3 a.m. All recorded. My phone screen showed 47 missed calls and too many texts to count. The latest from Mom. Your father found your note. We know you're confused and hurting. Helen is worried sick. Please come home so we can help you. I hadn't left a note. Bailey's best friend, Hannah, texted next. Your mom posted in the neighborhood Facebook group that you're having an episode. Everyone's looking for you. Also, I found something in Bailey's gym locker yesterday. Call me ASAP. The neighborhood Facebook group. I could imagine the post. Our daughter is struggling with her grief and may be a danger to herself. She's confused about her sister's identity. If you see her, please call us immediately. Complete with a recent photo and probably my license plate number. Another text, this one from my 12-year-old cousin Lily. Helen helped me with my algebra homework yesterday and bought me ice cream after. She's really nice. Why is everyone saying you ran away? I started the car, my hands shaking. 3 separate crises were exploding at once. My parents discovering I was gone. Whatever Hannah found in Bailey's locker. And somewhere, a child services investigator was probably receiving an anonymous tip about identity fraud at the Morrison house because I'd sent that tip yesterday, right before I'd started packing. The Ring doorbell footage would come next. Me creeping out at 3 a.m. with a backpack. Me acting erratic at the pharmacy. Maria would have to tell them about my rambling, which they'd paint as paranoid delusion. I pulled into a McDonald's parking lot to think. Helen had access to everything now. Bailey's bank account, her college fund, her social media. She'd taken over Bailey's car insurance claim from the accident, signing papers with Bailey's name. The grieving family discount she'd negotiated with the insurance company. Bailey's phone plan still active. Bills still auto-paying from my parents' account. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Helen. I know you're scared and confused. I understand why, but running away isn't the answer. Your parents love you. I'm not trying to replace Bailey. Please come home. Then another. I just want to be part of a family. Is that so wrong? I thought about the night I caught her practicing Bailey's handwriting. The way she'd smiled, so calm, so sure of herself. She'd been Helen for 3 months, but Catherine Chun for who knows how long before that. How many other names had she worn? The coffee shop on 5th Street was just opening. I needed caffeine and somewhere to sit and think. The barista, a guy from my English class, did a double take when he saw me. Hey, aren't you? I'm sorry about your sister. The other one, I mean not the one who's... He trailed off, confused. When did she die? I asked suddenly. He blinked. What? Bailey. When did she die? Like June. June 15th, right? That's when the memorial was. June 18th. I corrected automatically. Then I froze. Wait, was it the 18th or the 15th? The days after the accident blurred together. Hospital waiting rooms, funeral arrangements, casseroles. When exactly had Bailey died? The barista shifted uncomfortably. You okay? You look really tired. Just coffee. I managed. Large coffee. He rang me up, glancing at his phone. Oh hey, is this you? He turned the screen toward me. The neighborhood Facebook group. Mom's post already had 127 reactions and 45 comments. The photo was from last week. Me looking hollowed and thin, dark circles prominent. Struggling with delusions about her deceased sister. He read. Maybe experiencing a mental health crisis. Damn, that's rough. I grabbed my coffee and fled. In the car, I scrolled through the comments on Mom's post. Neighbors offering prayers, people sharing sightings, someone mentioning they'd seen me at the pharmacy, acting strange. The narrative was already written. Grieving twin, mental breakdown, caring family trying to help. My dad's brother, Uncle Rob, had commented, "We're praying for her." This reminds me of when Dad passed and she wouldn't come out of her room for weeks. Same pattern, hiding, making accusations, pushing everyone away. She needs professional help. I remembered Grandpa's death differently. I'd hidden because every room in his house reminded me of him. But now that grief response was being weaponized, turned into evidence of instability. Another comment from someone I didn't recognize. I saw your other daughter at the mall yesterday. She's looking so much better. Grief counseling must be helping. Attached was a photo of Helen taking a selfie at the mall, smiling brightly. But in the mirror behind her, you could see she was actually in the food court, not at grief counseling like the caption suggested. The timestamp showed 2 p.m., exactly when her counseling appointment was supposed to be. My best friend Emma texted, "Your mom called my mom. She says you're having delusions about Helen, that you think she's not real. I'm worried about you." Then also, I hate to ask, but I really need that recommendation letter from your mom for my hospital internship. Should I wait until things calm down? Even Emma was being pulled into their web. Everyone needed something from my parents, from Helen. The recommendation letters, the charity connections, the social capital of being friends with a tragic family who'd lost a daughter, but gained another through foster care. I found myself parked outside Bailey's friend Jessica's house. It was 5 a.m. now, too early to knock, but I could see their Ring doorbell, and I knew the footage would already be uploaded. Me sitting in my car at 5 a.m., looking exactly like the unstable teenager my parents were describing. Hannah texted again. Bailey's diary was in her gym locker. The janitor found it yesterday and gave it to me since I'm cleaning out her stuff for your parents. There's some weird stuff in here about feeling like she was being replaced before Helen came. Call me. My hands went numb. Bailey had felt replaced before she died? That didn't make sense. I thought about the foster care paperwork Helen had mentioned seeing. Papers dated months before Bailey's death. My parents had been planning to foster a teenager. Had Bailey known? Had she found out somehow? Another text from Mom. The police are involved now. This is serious. Helen showed us the messages you sent her last week about making her disappear. We're only trying to protect both of you. I'd never sent Helen any messages, but she'd had my phone for 10 minutes last week when I was in the shower. Enough time to send herself threatening texts from my number, then delete them from my phone, but keep them on hers. The sun was fully up now. Families starting their days, unaware of the drama unfolding in their neighborhood Facebook group. The crazy Morrison girl who couldn't accept her sister's death. Who was jealous of the foster daughter. Who was having a mental breakdown just like when her grandfather died. I looked at the $40 Maria had given me. Enough for gas to get out of town, but not enough for a hotel. My credit cards were in my parents' names. They could track those, probably freeze them. I had maybe 6 hours before the police took this seriously. Bailey's diary was out there with evidence of something wrong before Helen arrived, but getting it meant going to Hannah's house, and Hannah's parents were probably watching for me now. The security footage from the pharmacy would be shared soon. My Instagram post was already being screenshot and analyzed. In my rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of someone in Jessica's window watching, probably already texting my parents about the car outside. I drove away, no destination in mind. Helen was winning. She'd probably already practiced her concerned sister act for when I was found. My parents would believe whatever story made their grief easier to bear. The community would rally around the tragic family with a troubled daughter. And somewhere out there, Catherine Chen's real family might still be looking for her. Or maybe they'd given up 2 years ago. Maybe Helen had been other people before Catherine. Maybe she'd keep being other people after Bailey. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Helen. I know about the missing person flyer. We should talk, just you and me, before this goes too far. The threat was subtle but clear. Whatever Catherine Chen had run from, whatever made her become Helen, she wasn't going to let me expose it. And she had my parents, the police, and the entire community on her side. I pulled into a rest stop to think. In a few hours, my face would be on every local news site. Missing teen with history of mental health issues. Family pleads for troubled daughter's return. The groundwork was already laid, but Bailey's diary was still out there, and Maria had seen Helen before she was Helen. And somewhere in the foster care system, there were records of Catherine Chen that didn't match the story Helen had told my parents. I had evidence. I just had to survive long enough to use it. The morning sun climbed higher, and I realized with cold certainty what Helen had understood from the beginning. In this family, there was only room for one surviving sister, and she was making sure it would be her. I parked behind an abandoned strip mall and watched my ex-boyfriend Nathan's car pull into the Starbucks across the street. Helen sat in his passenger seat, her hand on his shoulder. They'd been texting since last week. I'd seen the notifications on his phone during chemistry class. Now she leaned across the console and tucked her hair behind her left ear. Bailey's exact gesture, the one she'd done whenever she was nervous. My stomach twisted as Nathan smiled at her the way he used to smile at Bailey. They walked into the coffee shop together, and I saw him open the door for her. Through the window, I watched Helen order Bailey's drink. Vanilla latte with an extra shot, no foam. She even held the cup the same way, wrapping both hands around it for warmth. Nathan was completely entranced. My phone buzzed with a notification from the family group chat. Mom had posted a video of the three of them at breakfast yesterday morning, discussing how worried they were about me. In the background, I could hear Dad mention something about Bailey wanting Helen to have her life, but the timestamp was wrong. The video showed 8:47 a.m., but I remembered that conversation happening at 7:30. They'd edited it, rearranged the timeline to support their narrative. I scrolled through my old texts with Bailey, looking for evidence of our parents' behavior. There it was 3 months before the accident. Bailey complaining about feeling invisible, about Mom and Dad always comparing her to their friends' perfect daughters. Another text from 2 weeks before she died. They keep talking about fostering like I'm not enough. My own response made me sick. Stop being dramatic. They love us. The 8-year-old from next door, Mackenzie, posted on her mom's Facebook. Helen told me the narrator was sick the day Bailey died. That's why she couldn't save her. The comment already had 15 likes. False memories spreading through the neighborhood like wildfire. I'd been at school when the accident happened, nowhere near Bailey. But now Helen was planting seeds of doubt about basic facts. I drove past the school and saw the security guard watching the parking lot. They were looking for my car. I pulled into the public library instead. A safe place with Wi-Fi and computers. The security footage from last week would surface soon. Helen had provoked me in the hallway, stepping on Bailey's memorial photo accidentally. My angry reaction, shoving her away from Bailey's locker, would look damning out of context. The school counselor, Mrs. Patterson, had already filed a report about my concerning behavior. I tried explaining about the identity theft, about Helen taking over Bailey's life. She nodded sympathetically while typing notes about grief-induced delusions and inability to accept sister's death. The mandatory therapy session started next week, or would have if I hadn't run. At the library computer, I logged into Bailey's old email using the password she'd shared with me years ago. My fingers trembled as I typed. The inbox was full of new messages. Helen had been using it to communicate with Bailey's teachers, signing up for her classes, maintaining relationships with Bailey's friends. But she'd made a mistake. She'd changed the recovery phone number to her own just yesterday. The autofill showed Bailey's last searches before the accident: feeling replaced by parents, golden child syndrome, narcissistic family dynamics. My sister had been researching, understanding what was happening to her. She'd known our parents were already looking for her replacement. I found the foster care website our parents had bookmarked. Their application was dated 4 months before Bailey's death. They'd specifically requested a teenage girl, someone who could fill the void in our family. The words made me nauseous. Bailey had seen this. She'd known she was being replaced while still alive. The library was getting crowded. I moved to a corner table and opened Bailey's hidden blog on my phone. Her last entry posted the morning she died. Meeting someone today who might help. Someone who understands what it's like to be erased. Initial H. My blood ran cold. Helen. Catherine Chun. They'd met before the accident. My therapist, Dr. Martinez, had left 3 voicemails. I'd confided in her about Helen last week, thinking she'd help. Instead, she'd called my parents immediately, reporting my fixed delusion about a sister who doesn't exist. Professional ethics required her to report potential harm. My honesty had become evidence of mental illness. Helen's Instagram story showed her at Bailey's grave, live-streaming her grief. She wore Bailey's promise ring, the one our grandmother had given her. The comments poured in. So brave. Bailey lives on through you. Your strength inspires us. She'd learned to perform grief perfectly, studying our family videos to master Bailey's mannerisms. I clicked on Helen's tagged photos and found something interesting. A picture from her old foster home, dated 3 years ago. She looked different. Darker hair, harder eyes. But there was another girl in the background who looked familiar. I screenshotted it and reverse searched the image. The other girl was named Catherine Chun, the real Catherine Chun. Helen had stolen her identity first. My phone battery was dying. I gathered my things and headed back to my car, but stopped when I saw a familiar figure in the parking lot. Bailey's drama teacher, Ms. Rodriguez, was loading boxes into her trunk. She'd been getting anonymous complaints about inappropriate interest in students ever since she'd agreed to testify about Bailey's handwriting. Now, she was clearing out her classroom, her tenure protection meaningless against the Whisper campaign. She saw me and quickly looked away, getting into her car. Another ally lost. Helen's strategy was brilliant. She didn't need to convince everyone, just create enough doubt to isolate me. The complaints, the edited videos, the planted memories with neighborhood kids, death by 1,000 cuts. I drove to the rest stop where I'd been sleeping and found my usual spot taken. Everything felt like it was closing in. My credit cards would be frozen by now. The $40 from Maria would barely cover another tank of gas. I parked behind a truck and tried to think. Helen's text came through with a photo attached. It showed her wearing Bailey's lavender pajamas, sitting on Bailey's bed, surrounded by Bailey's things. The same lavender pillow spray scent I'd noticed in the hallway last week. She'd even started using Bailey's night routine. Face mask, herbal tea, reading before bed. The caption read, "Your parents are so worried. I told them you just need space to process your grief." Another message followed. "I know you found Catherine Chen's missing poster. Her family stopped looking after 6 months. Some people aren't meant to be found." The threat was clear. I thought about the real Catherine Chun, whose identity Helen had stolen first. Was she dead, hidden somewhere? Or had she simply been erased like Helen was trying to erase me? My cousin Lily posted a TikTok of Helen helping with homework. In the video, Helen used Bailey's study techniques, even made the same jokes Bailey used to make about algebra. The comments from Bailey's other young cousins showed how completely Helen had integrated herself. Best cousin ever. Just like Bailey used to help me. The children's memories were being rewritten in real time. I needed that diary from Hannah, but her parents had forbidden contact. Her mother had posted about the safety concerns of letting me near their daughter. The suspension from school for letting me access Bailey's locker had strained their marriage. Her father blamed her mother for not supervising better. Another family destroyed by my investigation. The child services investigator would be at my parents' house soon, but I realized with sinking certainty that Helen had prepared for this too. She'd have documents, testimonies from neighbors, proof of my unstable behavior. The investigator would see a troubled teen rejecting a loving foster sister. Not identity theft. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but desperation won. This is Janet from Child Protective Services. I received your tip about identity fraud. I'm at your parents' house now, and I have to say, your foster sister seems to be thriving. She showed me her journal about how much she loves being part of your family, how you've been struggling with your grief. Is there something specific you'd like me to investigate? I tried to explain about Catherine Chan, about the missing person poster, about Bailey's diary, but each word sounded more paranoid than the last. Janet's tone shifted from professional to concerned. Have you been taking your medication? Your parents mentioned you've been prescribed anti-anxiety substances, but have been refusing them. I hadn't been prescribed anything, but arguing would only make me sound worse. I ended the call and threw my phone on the passenger seat. Helen had won this round too. The Facebook post about my mental health crisis had been shared over 200 times. Local news had picked it up. Community rallies around family with troubled teen. They'd interviewed my parents on their front lawn. Mom crying prettily while Dad held her. Helen stood in the background, the perfect picture of a concerned sister. I drove past Bailey's favorite frozen yogurt shop and saw the teenage employees watching for me. Last week's confrontation, when I tried to explain that Helen wasn't really Bailey, had traumatized them. Security footage showed me ranting while Helen stood there looking frightened. Another bridge burned. My part-time job at the bookstore had already replaced me. The manager had hired someone from Helen's old foster group home. Someone who knew Helen's secrets but would never tell. The girl had smiled at me through the window yesterday. A clear message that Helen had allies everywhere. The motel where I'd been staying had my credit card on file. They'd have to report my location when the card was declined. I had maybe 2 hours before someone showed up looking for me. The $40 would get me one more tank of gas but nowhere to sleep. Bailey's college fund notification popped up on my phone. Helen had accessed it this morning, using Bailey's signature to transfer money for books and supplies. The bank had approved it instantly. Bailey Morrison was alive and well in their system, preparing for freshman year. The real Bailey was becoming a ghost while her replacement lived her unlived life. I parked at a truck stop and watched Helen's live stream from Bailey's grave. She was reading poetry, Bailey's own poems from her journal. The viewers were crying, sending heart emojis, praising Helen's beautiful tribute. She'd monetized my sister's death, turned grief into performance art. Mom's text arrived with a video attached. Sweetheart, we're all here waiting for you. Helen made your favorite dinner. Please come home. The video showed our dining room table set for 4, with Helen in Bailey's usual seat. They'd even put out Bailey's special plate, the one with the chip from when she dropped it at age 7. The gaslighting was so complete they probably believed their own fiction now. My reflection in the rearview mirror looked hollow. Dark circles, unwashed hair, the paranoid, darting eyes of someone who'd been awake too long. I looked exactly like the unstable teenager they were describing. Every day on the run made their narrative stronger. Bailey's ex-boyfriend, Jake, had started dating Helen publicly now. His Instagram showed them at all of Bailey's favorite places. The beach where we'd built sandcastles, the hiking trail she'd loved, the bench where she'd had her first kiss. Helen was literally walking in Bailey's footsteps, claiming every memory. I thought about the night I'd caught Helen crying in Bailey's room. Real tears, real pain. She'd whispered Bailey's name over and over, clutching Bailey's pillow. For a moment, I'd almost felt sorry for her. Then I'd realized she was practicing, perfecting her performance of grief for public consumption. The homeless shelter in the next town required ID and a background check. They'd have my information within hours. The women's shelter had a 3-day waiting list. Every option narrowed, every door closed. Helen had thought of everything. My phone buzzed with an email from Bailey's journalism teacher. She'd agreed to publish something about Bailey, but with conditions. I can't risk a defamation lawsuit. I'll publish Bailey's own words from her blog, but I won't make any claims about identity theft. I'm sorry. I have my own family to think about. It was something but not enough. Bailey's words about feeling replaced would be dismissed as teenage angst. Without context, without the connection to Helen, it meant nothing. Another partial victory that felt like defeat. I found myself parked outside the courthouse, watching people file in for various hearings. Soon I'd be one of them, dragged in for a psychiatric evaluation, my parents petitioning for control. The legal system that should protect me would become another weapon in Helen's arsenal. The security footage from the pharmacy had been shared in the neighborhood watch group. Comments poured in about my erratic behavior and suspicious purchases at 3 a.m. Maria hadn't said anything publicly, but her silence spoke volumes. She had her own job to protect, her own daughter to worry about. I scrolled through Helen's old foster care records on my phone, public documents carefully scrubbed of identifying details. But patterns emerged. A girl who'd been moved between homes frequently, who'd been described as extremely adaptable and eager to please. A survivor who'd learned to become whoever she needed to be. The gas gauge hit empty. I pulled into a station and used the last of Maria's money to put in enough gas to get somewhere, anywhere. The attendant watched me carefully, probably recognizing me from the news. Another person who'd call in a sighting. Helen's latest Instagram post showed her signing up for Bailey's volunteer shift at the animal shelter. The caption, continuing Bailey's legacy of kindness. The shelter coordinator commented, Bailey would be so proud. They'd already forgotten that Helen wasn't Bailey. The replacement was complete. I thought about Dr. Martinez's words during our last session. Sometimes our minds create elaborate stories to avoid processing grief. She'd been so certain of my delusion, so ready to medicate the truth away. Now she'd testify about my fixed false beliefs, if it came to a hearing. The evening news would run the story soon. Local teen missing after mental health crisis. I was completely trapped with only $40 and nowhere to go. While Helen was literally living Bailey's life, down to using her special plate with a chip from when she was 7. They'd interview concerned neighbors, show footage of Helen crying, paint a picture of a family torn apart by one daughter's inability to accept reality. The truth would be buried under good intentions and community concern. Bailey's hidden phone was still out there, somewhere in her car's spare tire compartment, but the car had been sold weeks ago. The new owner unknowable. Another piece of evidence lost forever. Helen had probably made sure of that too, suggesting they sell the painful reminder of the accident. I parked at a rest stop as darkness fell. Other travelers moved past my car, living their normal lives. None of them knew that identity theft could happen so slowly, so publicly, with everyone's blessing. That a family could replace a daughter like a broken appliance and call it love. My phone battery finally died. In the silence, I could almost hear Bailey's voice from that last video. Her real laugh, not Helen's practiced imitation. Tomorrow the psychiatric hold petition would be filed. The countdown to my own erasure had begun. But Bailey's diary was still out there. And somewhere the real Catherine Chen's family might still want answers. And Maria had seen the truth, even if she couldn't speak it. The evidence existed, scattered and hidden, waiting to be assembled by someone who wouldn't be dismissed as crazy. I closed my eyes and made a decision. If Helen wanted to play the long game, I'd play it too. But first, I had to survive the night, and then the next one and the one after that, because Bailey had tried to protect me, and I wouldn't let her sacrifice be for nothing. The rest stop lights flickered on as darkness deepened. Somewhere out there, Helen was probably practicing Bailey's bedtime routine, surrounded by Bailey's things, living Bailey's life. But she'd made one mistake. She'd let me see Catherine Chen's poster. She'd given me the thread that might unravel everything. I just had to stay free long enough to pull it. The journalism teacher's article went live at midnight. I sat in a Walmart parking lot, using their free Wi-Fi to refresh the page obsessively. Bailey's words filled the screen. Excerpts from her blog about feeling invisible, about her parents already shopping for her replacement. The comment section exploded within minutes. Some called it heartbreaking. Others questioned why it was being published now. Helen's supporters flooded in, defending the grieving family. By 2 a.m., the article had been shared 47 times. Not viral, but enough to plant seeds of doubt. I drove to the old car dealership where Bailey's car had been sold. The lot was closed, but I could see her Honda through the fence. Someone had already put fuzzy dice on the mirror. My hands shook as I climbed the fence, knowing this was trespassing, knowing it would look worse if I got caught. The spare tire compartment opened with a soft pop. Bailey's hidden phone sat there, wrapped in plastic. Dead battery, cracked screen but intact. I grabbed it and ran, hearing dogs barking in the distance. Back in my car, I plugged it into my charger and waited. The screen flickered to life. Bailey had recorded everything. Videos of our parents discussing foster care applications while she sat at the dinner table. Audio files of Mom explaining how a fresh start with a new daughter would help them heal from their disappointment. Screenshots of their browsing history, troubled teen replacement programs, and when your child doesn't meet expectations. The most damning video was from the morning she died. Bailey sat in her car, tears streaming down her face. She talked about meeting someone who understood, Catherine Chan, a girl from her support group who'd been running from foster home to foster home. Catherine had discovered our parents' plan and offered to take Bailey's place after she left for college. A twisted solution to everyone's problems. But the accident changed everything. Catherine saw an opportunity. Helen was born from tragedy. I uploaded everything to 3 different cloud services, then drove to the police station. The desk sergeant recognized me from the missing person reports. He called my parents immediately. Within 20 minutes, the parking lot filled with familiar cars. Mom and Dad, Helen, Dr. Martinez, even Uncle Rob. They all talked at once, voices blending into white noise. I held up Bailey's phone, showing the evidence. Mom's face went pale. Dad grabbed for it, but I stepped back. Helen stood perfectly still. That practice concern never wavering. The police took statements from everyone. Hours of questions, accusations, tears. Helen's story began to crack under scrutiny. She couldn't explain how she knew certain details about Bailey's life. The dates didn't line up. The foster care paperwork had inconsistencies. By dawn, investigators were at our house. They found Helen's stash. Catherine Chen's real documents hidden in the attic, photos of her studying our family from afar. Notes about Bailey's mannerisms, her favorite phrases, how to hold a coffee cup, just right. It was meticulous, obsessive, heartbreaking. Helen broke down in the interrogation room. Not the practiced tears she'd perfected, but raw, ugly sobs. She talked about years of rejection, of being nobody, of watching happy families through windows. When she met Bailey at the support group, she thought she'd found a sister. When Bailey died, she thought she could honor her by living the life she'd never have. The delusion ran deep. Helen genuinely believed she was saving our family, giving them the daughter they'd always wanted. She'd convinced herself that I was the imposter, the one who didn't belong. In her mind, she was the real twin, the better version. Child Services removed Helen that afternoon. I watched from my car as she packed her things, not into Bailey's designer luggage, but back into the same worn backpack she'd arrived with. Mom tried to hug her goodbye. Dad stood in the doorway looking lost. Helen walked past them both without a word. The house felt different with her gone. Bailey's room stood empty. Neither Helen's nor Bailey's anymore. Mom found me there that evening, sitting on the floor, holding Bailey's stuffed elephant. She started to speak, then stopped, started again. No words came. We sat in silence until Dad joined us. The 3 of us surrounded by the ghost of 2 daughters. One dead, one never real. The next days blurred together. Lawyers, therapists, insurance companies demanding explanations for the fraud. The college rescinded Helen's acceptance. The bank froze the accounts. Our family's reputation in tatters, whispered about at grocery stores and gas stations. I found an apartment near the community college. Nothing fancy, just a studio with a leaky faucet and thin walls, but it was mine. I enrolled in classes, got a job at a coffee shop, started building something separate from the wreckage. Helen went to a psychiatric facility specializing in identity disorders. I heard updates through social workers. She was struggling, making progress, relapsing, trying again. Part of me hated her. Part of me understood. We were both girls who'd lost ourselves in Bailey's shadow. Mom and Dad started couples therapy. Their marriage, built on appearances and expectations, crumbled under examination. Dad moved to a rental house. Mom kept sending me texts I didn't answer. Apologies mixed with justifications. Love tangled with blame. 3 months after everything exploded, I got a letter. Helen's handwriting, not Bailey's, her own, shaky and uncertain. She apologized not for wanting a family but for stealing mine. She wrote about Catherine Chun, the girl she'd been before. How Catherine had died the day she decided to become someone else. How she was trying to resurrect her piece by piece. I didn't write back, but I kept the letter. The town slowly forgot. New scandals replaced ours. The Facebook group moved on to other dramas. Bailey's friends graduated, went to college, carried on with their lives. Her ex-boyfriends found new girlfriends. The world kept spinning. On what would have been our 18th birthday, I visited Bailey's grave alone. Someone had left fresh flowers. Not our parents' expensive arrangements but simple daisies. A card sat beneath them and signed, "For the girl I tried to be." I sat there until sunset, talking to Bailey about everything. About Helen. About our parents. About the truth she'd tried to expose. About how I was learning to be just myself. Not the surviving twin. Not the other daughter. Just me. The cemetery gates were closing when I finally stood to leave. As I walked back to my car, I saw a familiar figure in the distance. Helen, thinner now, wearing her own clothes, her natural darker hair growing in. We looked at each other across the headstones. No words, no gestures, just acknowledgement of what we'd both lost, and what we'd both survived. I drove home to my apartment, made dinner for one, did homework at my tiny table. My phone sat silent. I'd changed my number months ago. No family group chats, no crisis calls, no one asking me to be anyone but myself. The scholarship came through the next week, not to Bailey's dream school, but to a state university 3 hours away, far enough to start fresh, close enough to drive back if I ever wanted to. The acceptance letter had my name on it, just mine. I packed my life into boxes, said goodbye to my few coworkers, left a forwarding address with my landlord. The night before I left, I drove past my childhood home one last time. Mom's car in the driveway. Dad's nowhere to be seen. Helen's window, Bailey's window, dark. The highway stretched ahead, empty and full of possibility. In my rearview mirror, the town grew smaller until it disappeared entirely. My phone GPS showed 180 miles to campus. 180 miles to a place where no one knew about twins or replacements or family secrets. I turned up the radio and pressed harder on the gas. For the first time in over a year, I felt like I could breathe. Bailey would never get her fresh start. Helen would struggle to find hers. But I had this moment, this road, this chance. The sun set as I crossed the county line. In my back seat sat a single box of Bailey's things. Not the trophies or the perfect photos, but the real stuff. Her journal, the broken music box, one photo of us from before everything went wrong. Enough to remember, not enough to drown in. My new roommate texted about meeting for coffee before orientation. I texted back, making plans, imagining a conversation where I wouldn't have to explain about sisters or grief, or the girl who tried to steal a life. Where I could just be a freshman nervous about classes and hoping to make friends. The campus appeared through the trees as darkness fell. Buildings lit up with promise. Paths full of students living their own complicated lives. I found my dorm, parked in the designated spot, grabbed my first box of belongings. As I walked toward my new life, I thought about names. How Helen had become Bailey. How Bailey had almost become nobody. How I'd been the surviving twin. The troubled daughter. The family problem. But here now I was just myself. A girl with a box of clothes and a partial scholarship and a story I might never tell. The dorm key turned easily in the lock. My roommate had already decorated her side. String lights and band posters and photos of friends from home. She looked up from her laptop and smiled. I smiled back and introduced myself. Just my first name. No qualifiers, no history, no ghosts. It was enough. It was everything.